What is up, my fellow salvage monkeys, and welcome to volume 24 of the One Piece Virgin's Egghead Book Club podcast, whatever other words I say. Hey, we're covering chapters 217 through 226, I believe, of One Piece, finishing off one arc and diving into a new one. And you know what, folks? I think there was a problem at the calendar factory, because it's all Sunday to me, folks. Could it be, Eggy?
Well, you actually blew out a little bit for me there. It was like, Sunday. So
I was saying
Sunday.
My new calendar is defective because it's all Sunday.
Oh, okay, yeah, there you go. Well,
Yep.
You know, I'm going to say, actually, that's corrective, because it's always a sunny day over here. You know, we're sunshine and yellow, baby. Yes, sir, like gold pieces.
Now, were you shocked at the reveal in the very first chapter, Eggy, that we have a new crewmate? I knew you had no idea this was coming. Anime fans would have no clue weeks, months in advance that this is going to happen. Like, were you flabbergasted beyond belief, Eggy? I mean, I'm forcing that to be even before your opening thought.
Well, yeah, but I gotta say, to be honest, as I'm reading this chapter, I feel very bad for Luffy immediately. I mean, we just ended up on the last volume 23. We're talking about, OTP, Luffy, Vivi, it's a beautiful future. And then you got the crazy girl, Nico Robin. Well, you stopped me from dying, so now I have to punish you with my existence. This is your punishment. I mean, listen, we've all heard that before, folks.
Yeah, are you getting flashbacks? Some poor suicidal woman who had a crush on you, Eggy. Oh no, be with me, it'll be okay, you don't have to die. And then you get your own Nico Robin. Maybe not quite as sexy or intelligent of a woman, but who's to say?
I will say, considering the circumstances, I think I was batting above my average or punching above my weight, however they say.
So maybe she was Nico Robin tier.
But
You're shipping Luffy and Robin? I mean, to be clear, Robin's like in her 30s.
All I'm saying is that there was a deja vu that happened, like a woman crawls out of a crate and says, you stop, I'm still here because of you, so now I'm going to make this your problem. That's all I'm saying. You know what? It's really more on me than anybody, but I would be lying if I said it didn't come to mind when I was reading that, but it was a surprise nonetheless.
Is that your top of mind in this volume that is really, if I was to summarize volume 24, it would be Oda is saying, hey, if you have read this far, if you finish the Alabasta saga, where I pulled out all the punches here, we built it up to this big ultimate climax, and we had this big emotional moment that's going to sink into your soul. If I have you this far, then you're going to be in it for the long haul. Time to start doing some fucking insane shit back to back to back. And really, this volume very much is, it's like he has 6 different jigsaw puzzles that he wants to slowly build throughout the series. And in this volume, he's like throwing random pieces from all 5 of them at you, like in random order. So you don't even know which random things that are happening are even connected to anything else. So, Eggy, I'm very curious to get all of your takes in this volume, because it is a lot of chaos and mysteries.
Well, from where I stand, I really feel like I could still wave a lot away with, I don't really know the grand line. Like, I have seen a certain amount, I've gotten a certain understanding. But, for instance, here with the log pose, yeah, okay, it's pointing up in the sky, there's a ship falling out of the sky, okay, I mean, hey, okay, it works for me, I'll take that as something that just happens. How am I supposed to know? They tell me the climate changes a lot. Maybe there was a giant tornado that was so strong that it just pulled and uprooted an entire island up into the sky. And I don't know why it would stay up there. I mean, obviously the ship didn't stay up there. So, maybe it's gravity. Maybe it's getting pulled by the moon. Maybe there's I don't know how many moons are out here in the One Piece world. There's a grand line pulling moons in, and changing the tide. Maybe that's part of the reason why the climate's messed up.
I think Teching 101 has like a 3-hour video just talking about the moon in One Piece. So you bring it up just kind of out of nowhere, but there's a lot to be said about the moon, like for real. So you don't even know.
I really don't, but yeah, I mean, like, I want to just, for the audience, if there's a more knowledgeable thing that I'm like just scratching the surface of, I'm just making stuff up. I'm just honestly thinking of random stuff in my head that could possibly happen. But that just goes to show the Grand Line is just like this other realm that's just really anything is possible. So unlike a lot of things so far where I've had a fact and logic take on it, like, oh, well, let me think about that. Let me put that under the microscope in the magnifying glass. The Grand Line, there's just ships flying around through the sky. Yeah, okay, yeah, cool, that's fine.
And we get all sorts of quotes, and we don't really know the context of who they're from. But a physicist named Willie Karen gets this little quote when we see the giant galleon falling out of the sky. It says, "Anything man can imagine is a possibility in reality." What do you make of that? Like a physicist in the One Piece world that has like a quote attributed to him that's just appearing out of seemingly nowhere in the story. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Well, when I think of that, it makes me just mentally put together the, dream or destiny message again. And basically, really
like Willie Loman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you were going for? As Death of a Salesman, Willie?
Well, I mean, I was thinking back to Mr. Muddle Puddle or whatever his name was from Luffy's hometown, where he's talking about dream versus destiny or whatever.
Oh.
Maybe I'm misquoting that. But that's just what comes to mind for me is, anything that could be imagined could basically be made reality. And so maybe that's anything you could dream could maybe it's not your destiny, but you could really put what you believe into what you achieve, you know.
And I wonder if it is a Willie Loman sort of thing with the character Willie Karen, or if isn't one of the inventors in Mega Man who like built, like, isn't that Wily? Isn't it spelled the same way, Willie?
Dr. Wily?
Yeah. Maybe he's inspired by that too. We don't know. There's not much known about Willie Karen, which is why this is still so fascinating in the story to pop up and then kind of never be talked about again.
Yeah, speaking of strange things, I think at the first volume here, I noticed that is this the first panel or the first thing that's basically in the first page of volume 24 appears to be like Snoop Dogg wearing a chopper hat. Or is it supposed to be Oda? Is Oda?
Yeah, I don't know what that is supposed to be. That's with this like little author comment of the volume, right?
Yeah. I think I might be misremembering. I thought there was something else in an SBS or in one of the his comments on this volume, one of the chapters that had something else kind of angling towards the secret Oda lore. But, he's got a lot of influences, so I think, to be honest, when we talk about Mega Man, I feel like I would almost feel like Mega Man would precede Death of a Salesman in his influence there if that character was going that direction. But
yeah.
But I could be wrong. He was obviously a very cultured, intelligent man, so...
Well, if it's a physicist, I mean, a scientist matches more than Willie Loman as a shitty door-to-door salesman. So... But do you have any other opening thoughts before we go through this chronologically? Because we still have one chapter of Alabasta to talk about before we put it up on the tier list. So what's your other opening thought?
Well, I would like to say total Hachi vindication, all right? There was uncertainty last round. We didn't really know for sure. It was hard to say.
I was even painting him in a completely wrong light. I thought he was stealing treasure, so I was a big dummy last time.
So the treasure, it is used to, not even that he leaves the food, or he leaves the big old octopus by the catfish, but then he uses the treasure specifically to get this cooking equipment in order to feed the catfish. Now, he had a little bit of a, personal motif to it. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, where I thought he was about to be serving up some jewelry out of the treasure box to his sweetie sweetheart, but she's over here putting her multiple hands out for that tasty grub,
And she has a thought bubble that says, like, I only like the food, I don't like Hachi. Like, fucking brutal. Every woman I've ever met probably had a similar thought. I don't know what the good aspect of me is, but they certainly had the second part. And yeah, and he has to make the moral decision because there's only one serving left. He served up this octopus fritters to everybody. And then an old man goldfish shows up late, like usual. Fucking typical elderly goldfish, can't show up on time. Scheduled fucking meeting for food. And Hachi has to choose. Do I give this to the woman I love or to the starving old man who just lost his home? And I think he makes the right decision.
And he does. He even receives domestic violence. Hopefully that's not in Luffy's future by having crazed stowaway women on his ship. But, you know,
well, as usual, we often see things in the cover story that are somewhat parallel to the chapter. And in this whole cover story about he wants to open an octopus fritter stand. What do they get when they go salvaging under the water but an octopus? And what does Sanji cook it into? Octopus fritters, the very same fucking chapter. So is this destiny? Are we going to, or maybe fate, not destiny? Are we going to eventually have Luffy eat from Hachi's new food stand?
Well, he sure likes to eat, and Hachi's out here kicking. He's out here cooking. We see, you know, it's all the backstory that's necessary is built up. So I think
if a
it's
previous
almost a
villain
guarantee.
offered Luffy food, I think Luffy would forgive him immediately. But maybe Nami won't be so cool about like the former Nazi that was like keeping me in the camp. I don't know if we should be friends with him, but
listen, I mean, right here isn't this the first chapter, or was that the second chapter here of this volume where has that very strong opposition to just accepting Nico Robin into the fold, and then she goes, oh yeah, by the way, here's these gems. She's like, oh, all right, yeah.
Oh, sister. Which is especially funny, like right after they had this panel of all of them crying because they miss Vivi, and then Zoro's kind of being the badass about it. And then, like, to immediately forget Vivi and call Nico Robin your sister. Like, greedy bitch, but that's why we like Nami. Mm-hmm. Should we, I guess I don't really have any comments this week, so guys, post more comments so we have stuff to read. You know, if you say anything even half interesting, there's a 100% chance you'll be on the show. But, actually, one just came in 33 minutes ago from Hunter Cole. It's a quote that says, Vivi is just a dry spell. So I assume that's her father, King Cobra, explaining some of his behavior. But we do have new members of the Measly Crew. Well, actually, I think the only brand new member is True Moo. Do we have a spot on the crew for True Moo?
Well, True Moo, aka dairy. I don't know if I've seen any dairy-producing creatures in this series too much, other than Momu, but that might be on a whole other level. I guess, you know what, if we get some, I want to say like a butter churner, maybe like a food storage person, like somebody who could work on. Somebody's got to, you know, salt the meats, hang them out, cure them, and all that stuff.
What about the freezer protector, and we make this poor guy just live in the freezer to keep track of all the food?
We have like a Taco Bell freezer in the ship where he's just smoking weed all day?
Well, yeah, because there's going to be a lot of people on our crew, and they're going to be trying to sneak food, so we need a guy whose only job is to protect the food from the rest of us, and he doesn't get to leave the freezer other than like a big fight. And he'll kind of be like another Sam and Butchie where, oh, we're down and out in this fight. Time to call out the freezer man. He'll come, you know, change the tide of battle.
I like it. Sounds good to me. Welcome, Mr. Freeze. Hashtag not the Batman.
Yeah, you would think a True Moo, any dairy product would probably freeze in the freezer. So hopefully he's ice cream and not milk.
That's right.
But that's it for that. So let's go to the final chapter of Alabasta, Eggy. And we get you know, little snippets of everybody we met on this adventure, and we get to see where they are now. What sticks out to you?
Well, I guess I think this was mentioned maybe before in the last volume about the increase of the bounties on Zoro. I'm sorry, well, I guess Zoro getting his bounty and the increase of the bounty on Luffy. And as I was reading through this volume, and they mention it in the first chapter here, just because further on in the volume, there's such repeated discussion and attention paid to people's bounties. I thought for sure at some point there that it would end up coming up and being like a big moment, but
well, if we have Bellamy, the hyena, who is severely underestimating Luffy because he has the outdated bounty. So yeah, you can imagine when he discovers who he's picking a fight with is actually worth a lot more. Might be for a good reaction, but we'll see. That's way ahead of where we're at. But yeah, and they don't even know that they have bounty changes. Like Zoro, I don't think he even knows he has one yet. Or do they find out?
I don't think so. I don't believe that
probably not yet.
Yeah.
I know that the guards in the royal palace see it and like they're gonna warn them, but then it's too late because they already left. So they probably don't know. What about Lady Hina? We find out her devil fruit is the bind fruit eggy. Is this giving you even more flashbacks to women of your past?
Thankfully, no, not quite. Even when I was skinny, I've still been a larger gentleman, so never been outclassed in that department to where I could get bound.
I mean, you can be voluntarily bound.
Yeah,
don't knock until you try it, Eggy.
Yeah, I think I would have to, be like held against my will. So, no, not for me. But
what if it was beautiful Lady Hina with pink hair? You wouldn't go full Django mode? Fucking Gunnar Django?
I'm claustrophobic if I'm getting wrapped up in stuff. I have a large chest cavity or whatever. I got the barrel chest going on, and I got the barrel to match now. But even back in the day, I had the barrel chest, so I'll be like,
and Luffy's not bursting out.
She might be my most. I didn't like Mr. One. Like the razor sharp. I'm a little bit squeamish about that, but she might be my new real
mortal enemy.
Yeah, the cringe inducer, because that's a cringe inducing, that gives me the ick, if you will. Do I understand this correctly? All she has to do is just like basically pass her limb over somebody, and this like allows her to bind, or does she really? That seemed to be like how I read it.
I think he was like diving towards her to attack her, and then she kind of just like gooed up her hand, and he went through it. It's really not important, like no spoilers or nothing, but I didn't even remember she had this power because it's like it never comes up. I'm surprised there's so much Lady Hina. Like she must be really relevant at the very end of the story because she hasn't done shit as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, she basically just pulls up and is upset like on her ship out in the waters and then just gets completely gotten around. I figured that was going to kind of be the case last time, and yeah, they basically just haul ass out of there. Just get out of there as soon as possible. So yeah, she and it's not even necessarily, I don't think, like how Smoker and Tashigi have sort of allowed them to move a couple different times now, and haven't actively pursued them as strongly maybe as they could, whereas with Hina it seems like she just kind of got outplayed and they just kind of got out of there,
especially with the whole Mr. 2 shit.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Old Man Toto, and he's like the only guy listening to Vivi's speech that she's giving to the Straw Hats who actually understands what's happening and who she's talking to. I thought that was kind of sweet. Good for him. He's just sitting there laughing, not explaining anything to anybody. What do you think of this? The casino is now closed. You said last time, somebody's got to run the casino. Evidently not, Eggy. Is Oda trying to imply here that in eliminating all the corruption and greed from this country, the casinos have to go as well?
To be honest, yeah, I suppose. I'm not gonna lie. It was funny. I was just, for no reason whatsoever, I was watching like the history of gambling on YouTube a couple days ago, and there was someplace in Europe, I forget exactly the time frame, but like casinos and gambling houses became more and more prevalent, and every time a gambling house would show up, it would bring the economic level of the region down significantly, like completely like bankrupt everybody. So then the government would go in and like blow up the entire place and get them all kicked out of there. So maybe, you know, there is a historical precedent that if you're surrounded by gambling, you might be in a downward trending economy.
Now, if you had to predict, how many hours of your life have you spent in a casino, Eggy?
I had a marker at some point, I think.
That'd be like 10,000.
What, like, let's say probably maybe like 5,000 hours? I don't know, somewhere in that ballpark. One
of the few men who made more at the casino than he lost, though, so very proud of you. Eyelash the Camel is a candidate to join the Supersonic Duck Squadron, Eggy. Can I play as him in the video game when we go head-to-head?
There's got to be some way to modify the textures. I don't know. I might have to draw up the camel texture from scratch. But I think there's... look through the texture dumps. Maybe he could be found as like a summon or a stage hazard. We could just map him over the Karus model, like just have the camel texture over the bird. Would that work for you?
Ace has like his little boat thing. Maybe we can turn that into the camel. It's pretty big.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's tools out there to dump textures from PS2 games. People have hacked them in other ways. So I did a little bit of, reskinning of like GTA back when I was a kid and stuff like that. We would make custom skins and like send them to each other and put them over our characters. So
turn the cars into camels.
That's right. It would be better that way, but maybe couldn't figure out why I was opening the side of a camel's head like this, but... Yeah.
Before we get to Nico Robin and her big reveal, do you have any other vignettes from Alabasta in this chapter that stick out in your mind, maybe?
I think there was one.
Something strange in my neighborhood. I might be seeing a ghost.
Oh, yes, of course. How could I forget? Well, somehow or another, through the magic of One Piece medicine, you know, it's really just
one
so
doctor in the desert. Wow.
Magically medicinal. Yeah, I don't know what kind of resources he has out there. I mean, back at Drum Island, they were barely making it work. So
they're the 20 best doctors ever.
Yeah, this guy's got to be coming in with a little bit more. No, somehow or another, that's right. The Guardian of Alabasta, the Guardian Spirit, was doing magical work, I think, here to help Mr. Pell somehow still be alive after being blown to literal smithereens.
Even his bandana has not been evaporated. Like, it's a huge chunk of it left, which is what reveals this is even who is alive. Like, your bomb couldn't destroy cloth that it's in contact with? Really? Cloth?
That's Guardian enhanced cloth, I'll have you know, and he must be a lot of hey, you know, there's got to be something to it, I guess.
When Luffy does Gum Gum Balloon, his shirt stretches as well, so maybe Pell's bandana has the incredible endurance and defense of his devil fruit. They just get the power of their clothes, or their clothes get the power.
That would probably be a helpful thing to have be canon throughout the story.
Well, I think it is canon because like Ace's clothes don't burn off, you know.
Yeah, they'd be going through a lot of fabric. They'd be walking around naked most of the time from shredding all their clothes. So, all right, you know, at least we're being consistent here with the superpowered fabric. So Pell, he's got the power.
We are satisfied that because of the devil fruit, he survived holding the atomic bomb.
I feel probably more comfortable saying that his bandana had the power to survive than he did. Like, I feel like that's more like that sits better with me because at least we have all this proof that fabric's strong. I don't know if I have too much proof of people just taking gigantic bombs to the face. I mean, it's not like he was even throwing it up in there. He was clutching that thing. So I mean, I could not have gotten any worse if it was enough to kill the entire city. I don't know, but.
We're 217 chapters in. Oda can make one mistake, okay?
That's right.
And we'll all acknowledge he fucked up and we don't like it.
Pell's a good guy, so it's not like we're, you know, keeping somebody bad throughout. So, you know, we'll...
yeah, but we're leaving Alabasta. Like, who cares if he lives? It's not like he's relevant anymore. Let him be dead. Let him have a sacrifice, and then we would remember him more fondly. Now we're like disgusted.
Luffy, you have prevented me from dying, so now I must punish you by staying on your ship.
Oh, he's gonna pull a Robin. Well, speaking of which, when Robin walks out this time, everybody freaks out. But Sanji, last time this happened, this exact same thing happened when Robin sneaks under the ship. Sanji held a gun to her head. But this time he's like all simping and he's got hard eyes. Oh, beautiful woman. What is the difference? What has changed in Sanji's character? He beat up a fucking transgender person? And now he doesn't want to hold a gun to a woman's head?
Hey, listen, maybe you have some great points here, but no, I think, I know when we covered it the first time, it just seemed like perhaps a lapse in consistency in the story. I would like to say on Sanji's behalf, I know he goes cuckoo for every woman, so I think it still is just that there was a bit of a plot hole there. But I know when I spend more time around a woman, no matter how good she's looking, if I really get to know what she's got going on and I really get to, get more of an understanding of her, that for me personally, that could increase my affection towards her if I was inclined that way. So I think maybe, Sanji, he's seen her being battle tested, and maybe that helped him overcome some indescribable hurdle that he had from sipping for her before. So, but I think it's just a plot hole before, because it wouldn't track really any other way.
Do you think? What do you think of the storytelling technique of? We have so many arcs that establish the pattern of. We're introduced to Usopp. We have the adventure saving Usopp's island and beating the bad guy. Usopp joins. We get that multiple times. Here, we get the most epic one ever with Vivi, 100 chapters of Vivi helping Vivi, but then she rejects joining the crew at the very last second, and then, the villain just pops in and says, actually, I'll be joining. Now, if they did not spoil this in every anime opening of the year that it came out, this probably would have been a pretty astonishing plot twist for those Japanese children back in 2002. Probably nobody got that twisted these days because they went out of their way to spoil it for everybody. But wow, what was Oda thinking, and what are you thinking as you see a villain who has saved Luffy's life a few times join the crew? Do you think this is somebody we can actually trust?
Well, I do want to say, I am one of these people who had sort of the cultural osmosis did spoil at least that this woman was going to be around at some point. I don't even know if it was the anime opening that I had seen that had spoiled it. It might have been back some time ago. But yeah, it doesn't make sense on the surface, but at the same time, I do think, as I think about it, we have Nico Robin. She has this history which she explains that she's just, been on her own since a young child, and she's always had to do whatever it takes to survive. She has had to run with these tough crews. So she's got that tough way of living. She's got that experience. She's got a bounty, or she, at least had one when they knew she was. She probably still has it. It'll probably come back up. But then we have Vivi, who really, also had to work her way through this tough situation, but she comes from royalty. It was really, she had to do this in order to save her kingdom, and now her kingdom is in a stable position. She has this home to go back to. She's young. She has this kingdom that she could tend to. She has a place there, and Nico Robin does not have a place. So I think when I look at it like that and think about it that way, either, I don't necessarily think that means that Nico Robin needed to join the crew here, but otherwise she was going to probably be just kind of floating around.
She is a bit of a floater, and she explains that she just joins up various different outlaw groups and stuff. So it's not like her whole life has been Baroque works or something. That's group number 8 that she's tagged along with just to have a place to be and something to do. Do we think if something better comes along, she'll ditch the Straw Hats, as she has evidently done to many other groups?
I would say, based on what I've read, I think it's absolutely a possibility, because if she's been bouncing from one to one, I think maybe it would have to imply that the Straw Hats would lose, because if if Baroque Works had ended up overthrowing Alabasta, was she going to just, walk away from them? And she had built up this rank within their organization. I don't think that she would have just left them all willy-nilly, but at the same time, once again, the Green Line.
I think Crocodile was always going to kill her, like after she read the poneglyph, no matter what. Good chance. I mean, I don't know, maybe he would have let her live, but why?
And maybe if it had some greater, like, oh, this is the first of, 5 poneglyph pieces. I have to read the second one that's in some other city. I mean, she's got powers. She's got, maybe she may have been showing a little bit of obvious disloyalty. I'm not gonna lie, actually, but if she has abilities and strength, and she's been by your side, and I guess he was pretty ruthless. I'm not gonna lie, but
yeah, and. In this volume, and I know we need to put Alabasta on the tier list, but in this volume, Robin not only wins over most of the crew, and mostly through jokes and shenanigans, but she really proves her usefulness when they go to Jaya, and everybody, half of them go off on their adventure and come up with nothing, and then Robin kind of comes in Deus Ex Machina, like, no, I actually got all the information off screen, and she even steals the eternal post to Jaya from those monkeys. So really the whole story is hinging now on her actions. So whether she could be trusted or not, she's at least necessary for the journey at this point. So that's something.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty strong ability to have, where she just spawn her hand inside of secured areas to grab something, and maybe you have to have an open route to direct the item back out. You can't just pull stuff other than her limbs through the floor or through the walls or whatever. But
yeah, she might make a trail of arms to pass something along from ship to ship.
Yeah, so that's pretty strong. I think that big ups Usopp. He's making these weather changing batons. Nami, she's using them. But I think Nico Robin's power scaling is immediately coming in as a high tier character as far as what they need in the story to get them where they need to go.
Yeah, Usopp is so low on the power rankings. He sees things that he can't even believe. He sees these seagulls get sniped down from miles away, and he says, "Oh, that's impossible. Nobody could do that." And then we just see a dude with a sniper. Usopp, you got a long way to go. But anyway, I think we've covered that chapter. So, Eggy, on your One Piece arc tier list, where does Alabasta land? And I can refresh you on where other things are if you need it.
I don't think I'm going to need it, because, to be quite sincerely honest, I think this one is number 1 S tier. I mean, it's got everything that you could possibly need. It's got the action, it's got the intrigue, it's got it's got everything. It's got
I would say, yeah, it does have everything, and even each member of the crew gets a fight, even if Chopper and Usopp have to share one. It's still better than any other arc. The closest we get otherwise is Arlong Park, and even then, Nami didn't get a fucking fight there, I don't think. So, here, everybody got something to do. The one piece that's missing, no pun intended, is probably a tragic backstory, but, maybe the Koza and Vivi childhood stuff gets to some people more than me, but... that's the only thing that makes it inferior to other arcs, but obviously easy S tier, best arc so far. And can you imagine, a dozen arcs in One Piece being better than this one, Eggy?
Well, they're gonna have to work pretty hard, because what we're about 200 chapters in.
We're not even like 1/5 caught up yet.
True, but at the same time, if there's a dozen arcs, and this was a pretty hefty, basically 100 chapters, right? This is Whiskey Beach or so?
Alabasta itself is 60-some chapters, 64 or something.
Well, then basically, it's still more or less just about everything from here on out. It's got to be better than this, then, if it's going to be a dozen of them, I would imagine. Maybe not, but... I would love for that to be the case, because
if there's over a dozen S tier arcs, that's a pretty good fucking story to read.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, this one, for me, the emotional grip of it, was really this sort of orchestrated betrayal on like how the Baroque works was setting up this civil war. I mean that hit for me emotionally, and everything else was just perfect. I mean, and we're going all the way back, to starting from Whiskey Peak here up to this point, but absolutely S tier, absolutely the number one arc in my opinion so far, no contest.
Luffy has more good fights in this arc than most arcs have fights at all. So, it truly does not have much competition. But this is just his first time giving us like a big epic arc. Usually they've been like 15, 20 chapters each. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it compares to the future epic arcs, one of which is probably not the Jaya arc, which begins on chapter 218. And I always find this interesting when Oda like officially is starting a new arc, he'll still have flashbacks to the previous arc. So even though this is the Jaya arc, we begin with a flashback to Luffy and Vivi and Cobra in the crumbling mausoleum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm glad that we do have that, because it provides that interaction between Cobra and Nico Robin that provides some of the, I guess, maybe not completely necessary context, because like we had the fight between Crocodile and Luffy, we saw how it ended up or whatever, and this, without knowing what we know here now, that was, it kind of seemed to conclude well enough there, but
I think the grand reveal here is that Nico Robin lied to Crocodile, and that the poneglyph actually does have the information of where the Pluton is. Mm-hmm. So I guess we have to imagine the shit she was saying about like all the history of Cayenne or whatever the fuck she was saying. Either she read that before and was like remembering it, or she was just making shit up, to lie as she's reading it to Crocodile.
Working in the shadows, it's her specialty, and pulling BS out of those shadows, out of thin air in a pinch. So I guess maybe, does this prove that maybe she wasn't completely loyal? Maybe there was a shared animosity between her and Crocodile, or maybe she was just doing it because she knew if Crocodile got that information that everyone was going to die. So,
but she says her entire goal was to find the real poneglyph. So she doesn't even care about where the Pluton is or whatever. She's just hoping that, I guess, this Pluton poneglyph would actually be the real poneglyph, which evidently, what do they say about it? It reveals the true history. What does that mean, Eggy? Why is the Jaya arc beginning with a character saying, "Oh, I wanted to find the true history"? The fuck? We need to find a rock that has the true history on it.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I'm not sure so Gold Roger was the king of the pirates, and this is the age of the pirates that follow his execution. If we're looking at, maybe I need to get a timeline out here, because if these poneglyphs, from my understanding, they seem to be quite old. I mean, they've been, passed through multiple kings. I mean, if each of them is ruling for like, on average, maybe 20 or 30 years at a time, it seems like an awful long time.
At least hundreds of years old, yeah.
So, I don't know how exactly this could tie into the One Piece. Is there something else that's gonna, up until this point, this has kind of been where my focus has been, like, just tunnel vision. We're going through, defeat the bad guys. We're going towards One Piece, but now it's kind of splintering to the side here, where the true history that's made of scripts that are hundreds of years old. I mean, it seems to me, my gut feeling is that this is not exactly related to treasure. I mean, it could be, but this seems like this is some deeper stuff. Like there might be something even mystical or otherworldly that could be implied. Because if we're talking about Pluton and the incredible destructive power this has, and this is just like a side note of what Robin is really looking for, it's something she could really just cast aside, and it's not as important as what she's seeking, then it has to, I think, really be something greater than maybe I could even have imagined up until this point.
And something else interesting related exactly to that, and I want to hear you percolate on this. Robin says she became an archaeologist at the age of 8, and that's when the government put that huge bounty on her head.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, they.
It's illegal to be to research the past. That's what archaeology is.
Yeah, I mean,
that's.
Well, we're taking her at her word there but then they had also said previously that
she like destroyed a bunch of ships. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I mean, was that necessary for? Well, I guess that they say were the ships active in like seafaring. They didn't say that she killed everybody on the ships. They said that she just destroyed the ships. So maybe there was, as we move forward here, getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we know that there's ships that maybe people want to salvage for certain reasons. Maybe she had just found ships and was tearing them apart looking for something, and the destruction of the ships, more so than any loss of life, was perhaps what had caused her to generate this bounty. But
it is interesting that kind of her introduction is blowing up a ship, and then like that's what she's accused of doing as a child. But then we find out, even though she did blow up that ship, nobody died. Like the dude we thought was dead was alive. So
maybe she's been looking for a certain ship that has clues to what she truly seeks of this true history. I don't know. It might be still a little reckless just be blowing ships up, just all over the place and not getting any results. Maybe it'd be time for a reconsideration, but I guess it's her life, and she was also a child, so maybe she wasn't thinking as clear as an adult. But
hopefully we get more on this real poneglyph, true history stuff, more lore on that to come. Do you think it'll be useful to have somebody on the crew who maybe knows where the Pluton nuclear bomb is hidden?
Well, I would certainly rather have that person on my side than to have it be my enemy. So, I guess I'm sure nobody on the Straw Hat crew would want an island to be destroyed anyway. But yeah, I think you got to play politics sometimes. And, if she's showing up and attaching herself to you and, maybe that's the right time to start working in some of those inclinations to keep her on your good side and likewise.
Just a few things I want to point out for the folks playing along at home. In the flashback, when Luffy is carrying Robin out against her will, she says, "Stop, I don't want to live. Leave me here." Very funny for those who know the rest of the story. But any other thoughts on Robin ingratiating herself to the crew here before we move on to the giant galleon?
Well, I think if there's one thing to be concerned about besides her, saying that she's a master of assassination and has the secret of a basically nuclear weapon that could eviscerate and incinerate an entire island in 1 second, she's definitely got charm that, is a little, if she wants to flip on you, they're all really falling into her charms very fully and immediately. So
hopefully she's a good person, because otherwise these fools are fucked.
Yeah, and I think we do see her, she's doing well for them at this point anyway, but I would strongly consider, just like how I got the first gut feeling when she said, I didn't die, so now I'm your problem. It's sort of that, I love you at an arm's distance, and I ain't talking about the kinds that are sprouting out of the wall, but I gotta kind of keep a side eye on you while I'm showing you love at the same time.
Really, Zoro is the only one who doesn't get won over by her. Usopp's trying to fight back, but then he can't resist when the hands sprout out of Luffy's head and he pretends he's Chopper. Who could resist such a visual comedy there? But then a giant ship falls out of the sky, and Eggy, when I was a young boy, we talked about this before, my love of One Piece as a young boy that got cut short, because even though I did have the volumes of the manga, it's not like I had my own personal money. I was like 7, so I think I only had them up to like Arlong Park, and didn't have my mom buying all through Alabasta. So when the 4Kids dub ended, that was the end of One Piece for me for a long time. And the final episode I saw ends with this giant galleon falling out of the sky to crush them to death. And for me, that's how One Piece ended for about a decade. I'd seen nothing beyond that until, the 5-6 years ago. So that you've now made it as far as I did as a child.
Well, I gotta say, if I was in your position, I would be heartbroken because I really enjoyed reading up to this point. But I would say, I'm a man who has an affinity for the absurd, and if that's how this point blank ending, that they're all just crushed to death by this ship that. I mean, basically,
that came out of nowhere.
The scale of the panel, I think there's a bit of a perspective here, but if there isn't, I mean, this ship,
it's huge.
Is 100 times, 70 or 80 times at least the size of their ship. So I mean, certainly it could definitely crush them all to death. Luffy can't swim; he's sinking down to the bottom. He's dead. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. Being without any further information than telling me that's where it ends, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's weird, but...
It is sad that they decided to stop dubbing it there. That is a tragic ending for all the kids at home. It's not like I had internet at that young age to, fucking find out what happened next. I was a little kid, dude. What was I supposed to do? But, now we're here doing it and finding out what happened. I enjoy Usopp continually saying, oh, this isn't happening, it's just a dream. And Chopper's like, oh, phew, it's just a dream. He believes it. And then later on, Nami falls for it as well when he says it. So that's a good recurring joke in this volume.
I do have to say, it's very, kind of just shocking, I guess. I mean, I had an inclination when I opened the cover of Volume 24, and it does have... for this volume, Baroque Works / Skypeia, on the title. So I'm like, okay, that's something different. So when all of a sudden there's something in the sky, okay, that I'm inferring something here. But still, yeah, just as it's going, the panels breaking down, just the pieces of the ship falling. It's just very short, but very intense while it is happening. And so yeah, it kind of was easy to get to put yourself in the moment there with them, where it's what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's down the sky, it's skeletons and bones and what the hell? Oh no.
I mean, and even us right now, having finished the volume, we don't really have an answer for this, do we? Somebody says there's a knock-up stream that makes ships go flying in the sky, and then people see them fall and assume they're sky islands, and they get laughed at for that. But if this ship's over 200 years old, it was up in the sky that long and then just now fell on our heroes? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, or if it was somehow blown up from the bottom of the sea, you would think that it would have deteriorated. I mean, yeah, it has the skeletons on it, but you would think there would have been some kind of moss or some kind of breakdown or some sort of growth or algae, whatever. Maybe I'm not educated on the conditions of ships that are down there for a long time, but I think just based on what I have seen, what I recall seeing, I think that would be strange. So
all the skeletons had spears through them, right? And there's the spear through the picture Sanji was holding, and then when there's the giant silhouette monsters in the sky with angels, weren't they holding spears?
Yeah, I don't think we ever really got too much other than, oh my goodness, get me the F away from these gigantic, oh my goodness, what is that? Run!
Yeah, what is that, Eggy? What's your thoughts on the monster that's the tallest thing we've ever seen in One Piece?
Well, I probably would have something else in mind, but we just watched recently an episode of Dragon Ball Daima, where it's that planet with all these giant frog people or whatever, these giant reptile amphibious people that are the one follicle of their hair is the size of 10 humans. So to be honest, that was the first thing that came to mind for me. So maybe I know we've obviously had Dory and Brogy here,
but this is way bigger than them, it seems like.
Yeah, and the silhouettes didn't really elicit a Viking feeling for me.
Yeah, they had weird little wings or something on their back. They're holding big spears. I mean, if mega super giants live in the sky, I guess it kind of makes sense in a Jack and the Beanstalk sort of way, but it just seems impractical for something that big to live up in the sky. You think it would block out the sun every now and then?
Yeah, I guess if there was one place, I don't know, for me, if there was going to be one place for something that large to live, I almost feel like maybe it would. But they maybe have some kind of cloaking device or something that like blocks out their visibility. But if they were just walking around like that in the ocean, I think everybody would be like, ah! Like this is going to cause like gigantic tidal waves every second. And like,
yeah, if one of them fell, it would like destroy the world.
Right. If they do a cannonball from up top, it's over with. It's going to be, you thought that Alabasta was dry. There's not going to be any more ocean left. All the pirates are going to die.
So they search through the wreckage of the ship, and Luffy does find a map of Skypiea. So what are we thinking, Eggy? Probably real, right? I mean, fucking ship falls from the sky, and it has a map that says Skypiea on it. And the volume spoiled you by telling you we're in the Skypiea saga. I mean, it's adding up to me. And we played the video game where there's Skypiea maps in it.
Well, I think it is real. Yeah, I would say that the fact that the map exists and it came from that ship are enough to dispel the eventual rumors that it is just some sort of ecological effect that makes these ships fly up in the sky. I mean, yeah, it could have came down with this map, but I think that it just makes more sense to me that I don't know why was the ship 200 years old when it fell? Was it just, somebody like one of the angels or whatever these creatures are just like accidentally knocked it over and it just like fell down out of there? Maybe it was in a museum or something and they accidentally knocked it down and like, oh, and then maybe that's why they came down. They're like, oh, did I break the ship I accidentally knocked down? Let me go check.
And we ran away too quick to find out. And then we ditched those poor monkey guys behind, and I liked that. Probably the biggest laugh I got is we got away from the giant monsters. Every member of the crew gets a turn to like recap the day's events, and then it ends with Masura, the ape man, who's also still on their ship. Like, it was very funny. And then they just throw him off. But
they're like, yeah.
But we still have to get to his introduction. So, what do you think of? They want to go to the bottom of the ocean, the monster trio, Zoro, Luffy, and Sanji, and it did not sit well with me that Luffy would want to be a scuba diver and wear this makeshift barrel suit made by Usopp, because in my mind, if one thing goes wrong, Luffy's dead, but I guess if he has his two strongest buddies with him, they're not going to let him drown, so maybe he's not too worried about it.
Well, I mean, and to go for the fact that he already can't swim, but then he's like double barreled up. I mean, I guess is that something that's helping assist him with the fact with his devil fruit? Is that gonna do anything for him? Maybe the extra air will help him float, but I doubt it. I think that's pretty set in stone that he can't float. But yeah, I mean, if he was going down by himself, it would be like a suicide mission. But
yeah. Whenever Luffy has to go underwater, like at one point he goes underwater in like a bubble or something, it always irks me. Like, no, get out of there, Luffy. No, this is the one place you should not be. But like he's so unafraid that when they're in the ship and it starts filling up with air, they just take the suits off. Like, you don't even know the cause of this. What are you doing? You're all gonna die. But Sanji and Zoro seem like they can swim from the bottom of the ocean up to the ship pretty well, so it must not be too deep here.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess if Nico Robin were to go down there and use her devil fruit power, is that going to somehow like puncture her barrel? The fact that she's spawning her limbs like in anywhere in the ship to grab something. It just seems like if we're talking about somebody, she shouldn't be overworked. She just showed up, but she wants to make it her problem too. I mean, to be honest, like she could just spawn like 100 arms and just like grab everything and then just pop back up. But I guess there needs to be a reason why they go down there and end up linking up with the. Maybe that's another part of it too, is that these are our strongest combatants, and they just happen to be going down there at the same time as a foreign pirate crew is about to also be going down there. So maybe they might need them to handle that business. Whoops, some primate behind.
Yeah, speaking of which, give me your thoughts on Salvage King Masura and his little monkey crew. Personally, this might be shocking to some people. I'm a diehard One Piece fan and a Monkey fan, but I'm not a big fan of these monkey salvage guys. In the anime, it's especially drawn out and not particularly funny. The manga is a little less painful, but personally, I don't really like either of them that much. But what are your thoughts, Eggy, on the salvage monkey men?
Well, as far as Masura goes, to be honest, I could definitely see that his depiction in the anime could be grating. I think that the hallmarks are shown here in the manga. But for what it's worth, his sort of goofy, lighthearted, but he's got the ability to rule in his crew, who seems to be fairly numerous, definitely more than the Straw Hats anyway. But something about his personality, it's a little bit just kind of silly and a little, he just takes the Straw Hats at their word. He's willing to just believe that they're just hanging out over there and doesn't know that Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are down already plundering the ship that he's there to salvage. And he just, like something about his, also his musical side. It seems like a fun, happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, you would think that a monkey man screeching into a microphone as loud as he can would be a literally me character for me. So maybe I see myself reflected in this character, and that's why I don't like it. I just don't like what I see in the mirror.
And I also like him because, he's full of hot air. That's part of his. He's able to.
Yeah, he can inflate the ship with his own lungs. That's insane. Yeah, so he's got monkey screech, monkey punch, monkey lungs, a bunch of monkey abilities.
And I want to say one thing too that probably flies over people's heads. This is a character with autism. Okay, people might not know this. Masuri's got autism because, as a man who has autism, I know this. It's called like a sensory disorder. So he's wearing earmuffs or like ear coverings. He also has these very dark shades. So basically, or maybe this is to protect himself from his own screeching. But anyways, I already said what I said. Then why does he have the goggles? Sometimes you get too much. You get overwhelmed with your senses when you have autism. So you have to put some headphones on, put some eye coverings on to kind of, chill your brain out a little bit. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Eggy actually is listening to me through speakers on his desk. He's just wearing those headphones for his autism right now.
That's it.
Well, what'd you think of this, Eggy? He's like a weird monkey man, and so far we've only really seen humans in One Piece. So, maybe he has a devil fruit. No, he dives into the water and uses monkey punch to beat a giant sea monster. So he has no devil fruit power. He's just that strong. He can swim. Is he human? Is he monkey? What is this?
Perhaps. We had Little Garden where it's stuck in dinosaur times. So maybe there's some other kind of island where they haven't fully evolved into humans yet. We're on the missing link. This is basically Bigfoot right here. And
his brother who shows up at the end.
That's right. To be honest, that's as good of a guess for me as anything, because otherwise, if there's just Monkey Man as a people. I mean, to be honest, even if that's the case, there's still missing links. Like, this is just some kind of other third thing that just happens to have monkey powers and monkey appearance and be on a giant monkey ship. I think no matter what they say, to be honest, it is what it is. This guy's definitely Bigfoot. But maybe he's more like a big mouth. It
really shows that Chopper got a raw deal where he's walking around in Yeti mode and people, it's a monster, he can't be with us humans. Like, if he just wasn't on that island, evidently it's just normal. Like, people just are Yeti monsters and it's no big deal. So, it's too bad he got discriminated against for something that is seemingly normal. Just not on Drum Island, where they have fucking Wapple as the king, like, who's also a fucking freak. Like, these people are in any position to judge. But
it's just how it is. He was being hated on by his own reindeer crew, just like homeboy Rudolph from the start, and then he levels up with his devil fruit, and they already just had a chip on their shoulders to begin with, a chip on their hooves. They said, hey, no matter what happens, we're just some haters. So he's had to get out of there. He had to change the environment, and then now he's prospering. That's a life lesson right there, folks. Take that to heart.
Then we get just a bunch of nonsense of like a giant turtle shows up and we think that it ate the ship. But it's all just like a bunch of, like I'm saying, nonsense. Like I feel like this is not necessarily contributing to the overall story or even the arc that much. And I wish this monkey salvage stuff maybe was cut down by a chapter. Like, imagine an entire month of publication was just them hanging out with Monkey Bro.
Yeah, I think I've made the mention before of certain aspects of the story reminding me of like RPG mechanics. And I do have to say, as we're going through these chapters, we had Logtown after Arlong Park, and I feel like, oh, what the fuck?
What, did your lights change?
Well, it's operates on a sensor, but I've had the sensor turned off for quite a while. I don't know why. There was a power when the breaker surges, it comes back on. So we'll see if it stays on. My lighting might be messed up for the next 20-30 minutes here, but
it is what it is. You look fine to me.
Maybe that's a sign. What? Anyway, with Logtown, I kind of felt that was sort of like a this intermediate part between Arlong Park and then heading to the Grand Line. This is giving me some of that same energy. Like this is, like the cutscene in between fights or something, like if you will, just an interlude between major or larger plot points in any case. So I guess it would be a little hard to go directly from, right from the Alabasta right up to the town that I forget. Is that Jaya? That's the town where the...
Jaya's the island. Mock Town is where all these pirates are there to laugh at the other pirates who have dreams. How embarrassing.
Yeah, I think that they could have just gone right there, but then I know we're also having the secondary Monkey Man, so maybe there's going to be a reason to have it in here to build up towards the Monkey People Island in the future.
I will say it is extremely satisfying where the plot with the monkey people ends up, and it's one of my favorite parts. I just like this initial interaction out in the middle of the ocean just goes on for so fucking long, and I'm not laughing at any of it, and I'm just ready for it to move on.
And, to be honest, I definitely I feel where you're coming from, but I feel like I enjoyed the presence of the giant turtle just because it was a bit, doesn't contribute in a productive way, but
it's like a power scaling thing almost. Like this thing's even bigger, and then even the turtle's afraid of the giant thing in the sky. Like it's just like when you thought it couldn't get any worse, this thing shows up.
So it's like, to me, there's this combination of the shocking elements of the ship falls out of the sky, there's a giant turtle, and then there's these giant, like, freakish, whatever these things are, these super giants. And then at the same time, it's like a good mix of, there's like a comic element to it with the monkey and his personality. So like, he's just kind of such a silly monkey. While also being in the midst of these things that are so shocking and so unusual to us at this point. For me, despite, that is not a particularly constructive situation, but these elements coming together for me, I did enjoy that much anyway.
When they get back up from all this nonsense and we see the spoils of their salvage, Luffy is very excited to have the suit of armor that he's wearing, and like Nami completely destroys it, like with a punch, I assume. So very fragile. But otherwise, there was not really any treasure. It was just like plates and dishes and stuff.
Yeah, and it seems to basically just like disintegrate upon being touched anyway. So her stomping out into dust.
And now we can finally move on to Mocktown, which we're over an hour in. We can finally talk about Mocktown, which is how do I put this, Eggy? Mocktown, really all of Jaya is an arc that plays infinitely better on your second read through. So, which should be clear when like every chapter we're meeting like 10 new characters very briefly. You can see how something like that pays off in the future, but this very much is Oda's saying, okay, you made it through Alabasta. Now I'm going to prove that I've got like 1,000 more chapters of shit planned, and I'm going to throw a bunch of it in right here so early on in the story. So just not even in chronological order, Eggy, but with all this shit we see in Jaya, what is top of mind?
Oh, fuck, I'm trying to think. I guess, to be honest, I want to say that the whole thing that goes down with when Luffy and Zoro and I think Sanji, but Luffy and Zoro are the ones that come to mind for me specifically, but how they really I don't want to say imitate, because like imitate's not right, but they essentially in their own way have this interaction when we take it back to the what was it, the mountain bandits or the mountain pirates or whatever,
chapter 1
when Luffy was observing them cause these issues, and Shanks was just the bigger man, and he said, I'm not even gonna dignify this with getting all amped up about it. Luffy and Zoro, they basically just allow themselves to get disrespected, smacked around, even spat on, beaten up, thrown through walls and tables and through the bar and everything on behalf of the Bellamy pirates. And they just take it and they walk away from the situation because they know, I would like to think they know deep in their heart of hearts that they could just obliterate all these people. But they have information that they need to gain about what's up with this Sky Island, so they're not going to just get this knee-jerk reaction and spoil their whole reason for being here to get this information. So I think that, their stoic nature in this whole situation that's so volatile, I think that's really what my top of mind, you might say, for this piece of Jaya is.
I'm glad you tied it back to chapter 1 Shanks in the bar, because for a lot of people this initially does not set well with Luffy and Zoro getting the shit beat out of them and not fighting back. But after Bellamy and the whole bar kind of gives these speeches mocking the idea of dreams and just be happy with the treasure you have right in front of you. Why would you waste your life pursuing something bigger and grander that you don't even know if it exists? And they're all laughing about it. It is like, Luffy, people who don't believe in dreaming are so far beneath Luffy that, like, why would he even fight back? It'd be like getting mad at an ant,
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, in the mocking environment here too, it's sort of like a misanthropic sort of environment where they don't even feel like taking any time at all whatsoever to consider anything that's just outside of what they're used to, which is just basically violence and, a lot of violence and gambling and drinking and all this stuff, just all these very base level, low brain, high impulse behaviors. That's what they allow themselves to be consumed by, and they don't even...
The Mocktown bar is pretty much, it's Eggy's Rumble chat. Like, just a bunch of wild people. They get really pissed if you are not doing exactly what they expect of you.
And we come right into Roshio here with his bandana that appears to be a person being hung. Like, that's the pattern, so you kind of know just what you're, and he calls himself the executioner, but I think it really sets the tone that he's gambling and killing people for winning against him. It kind of reminds me of maybe some Three Stooges, where they're, if you happen to be slipping a card, those three men over there that are getting wheeled out, those are the last ones that are slipping cards, and I had to shoot them all.
When he's introducing basically a new character every page, he's playing with the idea of which characters are actually relevant. And what do you say, Roshio, the guy with like the hangman's noose or whatever fucking tattoo on his hat, or I don't know what he was. That character specifically gets hyped up as, you don't want to fuck with that guy. But that's just to hype up Bellamy, who immediately stabs the dude in the hand and throws him out the window and blows him up. So you don't even know which characters that are being introduced will ever show up again. He's kind of throwing everybody at us willy-nilly. And something that nobody has, as far as I know, nobody has ever mentioned this, ever, Eggy. We said multiple times, we're getting these little quotes from a physicist, Willie Gal, or whatever his fucking name was. Nobody has ever, I think they took this out of the anime. Eggy, there's a character named Jew Wall. Did you see this? Jew Wall?
Well, when they say it, doesn't it say that it's the log of Jew Wall?
Yes.
Is there maybe well, we're talking about log poses, and they point. Is there the Jew Wall in the One Piece universe that the?
So I looked it up. Jew Wall is evidently the name of an explorer. He's never mentioned in One Piece ever again at any point. The only thing on the wiki for him is just this panel where a character named Jew Wall says, "This is Mocktown, the town of derision." Now, here's what you would not know, Eggy, is that this panel that has Jew Wall, literally a man whose surname is Jew, because that's how it works, Mumkey D. Luffy, Jew Wall, a man of the Jewish family, is saying this. The panel is introducing the big wrestler guy, you know?
Okay, right.
His name is Jesus. That character's name is Jesus, and as he's introduced, we get a quote from a guy named Jew saying this is the town of derision. That's in One Piece. Nobody's ever mentioned that one time in the history of talking about this manga, Eggy. Why is Jew talking derisively about Jesus?
Well, I think perhaps that Oda, he's taking inspirations from a lot of places. I think I've read some things in this book called the Talmud that, they weren't very fond of him. They said, hey, you know what? We're already with God over here. Stop trying to come over here and be the Messiah. So, yeah, the fact that it never comes up again is very interesting. Yeah, I just kind of, when it said log of the Jew Wall, I was just like...
Yeah, what are you supposed to think? I didn't think it was a guy's name. I was confused, too. Yeah, his name is Jew Wall.
There's a Jew Wall over there, and somebody just, it's not giving any... secret information. I think basically anybody who seems to spend any amount of time in Mocktown whatsoever on the fact that it's called Mocktown, I think you could put these pieces together pretty quick, but I don't know what he meant by that.
Now, I'm not going to spoil nothing for you, Eggy, but in the current arc of One Piece, which a new chapter actually came out this morning that I read, one of these random quotation guys, like the guy from Little Garden, we got a quote from that guy, and one of those quotes starts popping up again about 1,000 chapters later, so we might get the secret of Jew Wall legitimately, and if we do, I will tell you and spoil it, because I'm hoping Oda did not forget. He put Jew Wall in the story, not Jew Wario. Different kind of guy.
Not atop the fourth wall.
Nope. Jew Wario is going to top that fourth wall. So what do you think of this big wrestling brute champion grappler who piques Luffy and Zoro's interest until Nami reminds them they're not allowed to fight?
Well, I think by the conclusion of the volume, I feel like he is giving me probably the greatest interest, because we have... the Bellamy Pirates are all fairly identified. We kind of have a sort of a bead on their power level based on their bounties. And Jesus, the great WrestleManiac. Maybe shout out to Hulk Hogan. Maybe maybe this guy's going wild.
And you would think he's a luchador. They would pronounce it Jesus, because that's like a Spanish Mexican name. No, they just call him Jesus Burgess. It would make more sense if his name wasn't Jesus. But I guess Jesus, they're literally naming their kid Jesus anyway, right? So
that's correct, yeah. So yeah, just on account of that, he, it would just be, as acceptable to me if they never did mention him ever again, and they just this is crazy, whatever. But just on account of the fact that everybody else is identified with their, bounty level, and he has no known price, and but he seems to be quite the quite the figure in the Mocktown community. He's just jumping on buildings. He's beating people up. He just doesn't seem to care at all. I mean, that's like somebody who I would certainly want to have a beat on if I could. Like, okay, what's this guy's deal, and how can I get the fuck away from him at any point?
He might be another good cosplay for you. And maybe I could be the sickly horseman who has exploding apples. We could go as those two guys from Mocktown.
Yeah, this might sound crazy, but I still, at this point in my life, I don't believe I've ever worn a luchador mask. You would think that I would be really the man to be wearing it, but somehow I've gotten this far. Maybe that's what I need to be buying off Amazon at the immediate conclusion of today's episode.
Should our next podcast be the Mucha Lucha Virgin podcast, and we review every episode of the Kids WB Classic?
Well, if I invest, I'm sure it can't cost that much. I might be disrespecting the culture to get some cheap garbage off Amazon, but for my purposes, it is what it is. I might have to do it. I want to mention, so in the chapters here of Mocktown, I think this is chapter 224. This might have my number one panel that's existed at any point so far. The way that you had such an affinity for the conclusion of the previous volume where all the Straw Hat members are putting up the X-Fists.
That's me relaying everybody else's opinion, but I do love it as well.
So my version of that is the Straw Hats all being laughed at by the pirates as they're all... Just the detail here, I mean, this is...
There's like a guy like upside down up in the air. They're throwing a table at one point. Yeah, that's a big group of crazy people.
This might very well be the first One Piece panel that will hang in my home. I'm not going to lie, just really, there's just something about it that really resonates with me. Maybe it's the fact that there's a bunch of drunken, violent idiots, like just acting like total buffoons. But that's just how I feel. I want to give that panel an extra special recognition and salute.
We did skip over this before they all get laughed at. We meet an interesting big fat guy sitting next to Luffy at the bar, and him and Luffy, they have the same cherry pie, they have the same drink, but they have exact opposite opinions about it, and then they start kind of, getting a little aggressive with each other. What'd you think of this guy?
Well, I think perhaps the most shocking part of this to me is that Luffy would say any food is not to his liking.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know, we've been talking about,
It was a cherry pie, right? Like, what is it about this cherry pie that Luffy hates it? It's so bad he could die.
Yeah, I mean...
But the other guy takes like 50 to go.
I guess I just pulled it up here. I mean, there doesn't seem to be much like shown with the pie, so maybe it's just like straight up like crust with like one little piece of cherry on it. I'm not sure that's just how it appears to be drawn. So maybe that. And to be honest, if there was one thing I could ever see Luffy being mad about with food, is that he's being served something that there's not enough to the dish, like it's too meager. So maybe that could have something, and maybe the other pirate just doesn't like cherries. He wants to eat crust. I don't know.
Well, then when they get laughed out of the bar, though, Cherry Pie Man is just sitting in the middle of the road, and he tells Nami, hey, your friends won that fight. Like, this dude seems wise beyond his years, even if he has shitty pie opinions.
Yeah, I obviously I know that there's no connection here, but the way that how I read this, where we're having, Luffy and Zoro, they're basically echoing what Shanks had gone through at the very beginning, and then they come out and meet this giant man who's really warm on how they had handled that situation. And then after, as they're walking away, then we cut back to the ship with Usopp and Chopper, and there's something just about the way this guy's face is shaped. He's kind of got like the very like pointed, like angry brow that Usopp can have. He's kind of like his eye shape is Usoppish, and he's got like a not super large nose, but it's more pronounced and larger than usual. So I don't know. I'm sure there's nothing to that at all, but just, to kind of have it go through in the way I was reading it, to kind of go and have this guy like looking in the way that he did, and then it cuts right back to Usopp. I was like, oh, Usopp wasn't there with them, but it almost felt like, in a way, that there was like an energy, but I'm sure it's nothing, but that's just how when I was reading it, I got that feeling, so I thought I would mention it.
Well, Oda, I mean, he does not often do these like double page 2 spreads where it's one panel taking up both pages at once, but he gives one to this dude when he says people's dreams don't ever end. Like, what a weird, this random character who doesn't even have a name is like dropping, I guess, some sort of a quote that is important to the series because it gets a whole double page about it. So what do you think of that significance, and if anything?
Well, it just also that this guy, his behavior here really goes against the whole like mock town culture. Like if he's around enough to have a presence and he's just as like this one guy who's behaving the complete total opposite of everybody else around, everybody else is just trying to get over on each other by any means, and they're just always rude and demeaning and just fighting and just nonstop with the negativity. And this guy is just this shining ray of very large muscular light in the midst of this. I think that also might have something to do. I don't know if that's the reason why he would have that sort of recognition, just because I mean really we're kind of going through this and it doesn't seem like he's earned that yet necessarily, but that'd be, I think, just as good a reason as any at that point, as far as I could tell.
As they're walking away, Nami wants something with like to talk to him, but Luffy and Zoro, they seem to imply that there's more than one. He's not alone, something like that. Did that pique your interest at all?
I might have not given that the full the full weight that it might have needed.
It's a quote. I mean, it's still debated today. What exactly they meant by that. That there's more than one, or whatever exactly the quote was. Some some translations uses the word they. So who knows? We still don't know.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I guess the way that I read it was there's more than one Bellamy pirate there, or whatever, that they would, if they go against one, they're gonna have a whole big heap of problem on their hands. So maybe there's something stronger than that, or a deeper meaning, but that's kind of how I just took it in its immediacy. They would have been overwhelmed, and if they basically flip the whole village upside down by fighting this entire crew, then that's going to have a negative impact on them trying to get the information they need. So that's how I feel about that.
And I think with that, we've covered pretty much everything out of order. Robin gets information that some guy named Cricket was kicked out of Mocktown for having dreams, so maybe they should go talk to him. And then it ends with Bellamy overhearing, Cricket might have some gold, I'll have to go pay him a visit. So we might have another confrontation with Bellamy as we investigate this Cricket guy.
I think so. And I'd also like to mention in the final chapter of the volume, there's the other monkey brother, or maybe these are just going to be a lot of monkey pirates, but Shoujo.
Pretty close to Shoji.
He kind of, if there was going to be one of the monkey brothers, that was going to be, I feel like he's kind of got some orangutan thing going on. And he's got the long hair. He hasn't never cut his hair in his entire life. I haven't got that far, but... And
he's the one who's screeching to destroy the ships, right? The other guy didn't do that, I don't think.
He's literally doing a vocal cover with his long flowing hair and his tufts of facial hair on his fat monkey face. I really enjoy...
Usopp, all his ship repairs are getting destroyed again. He's trying his best. We barely ever talk about Usopp on this show. He hardly ever does shit, does he?
Hey, he was instrumental in crafting that weapon for Nami.
He made the scuba suit?
Yeah. So he's kind of, he's got his... Like how Chopper is the support for the medicine, maybe Usopp's more of the support for the technological side of things. I'll give him his fair credit there, but yeah, he could step it up a little bit. He just doesn't have the ability like how Chopper here in this final chapter, he goes like guard mode and puffs himself out into this puffball. Chopper has the cute element to him, like, even if he's not doing something and he just happens to be there, he's making silly faces and
mascot character.
Meanwhile, Usopp, well, I mean, hey, no offense, Usopp, but
he's a support character lately.
Yeah. Support character might be lacking on some of the charm of that Chopper just has inherently, but
Any
Yeah,
last
he's
second
doing what he
thoughts
did.
before my coffee bladder explodes, Eggy, so we can get the hell out of here?
Well,
Or predictions.
I guess, so with Bellamy overhearing them going to see this cricket man, I'm going to... He's blowing their...
Discord is cutting you off, so say your prediction again if you can hear me. Or maybe this episode is over because you're completely frozen.
Update, you're frozen too.
Okay, I can hear you again for... Okay, well, you're back, so keep going. Say it again.
All right, so I'm thinking they're going to run away from Shoujo because he's just a pure destructive force, not really trying to deal with that. So maybe he's going to follow him to Cricket also. We know Bellamy seems to be implying that he's going to follow them to Cricket. I think they're going to meet up with Cricket. They're going to see what he knows. He might be the source of information on Skypiea. I think somewhere along this way, Bellamy is going to have the reveal of who he's up against. Like he's going to get some kind of inclination. Maybe there will be a conflict between him and the Straw Hats before he comes to that understanding. And I just maybe the Monkey Men are going to be the next cover story after Hachi, because I don't know what else they have going on right now. They seem to be colorful enough characters to fit that bill. But I don't think they seem to have. I mean, they have a substantial bounty. I mean, they have bounties of a similar strength to the rest of the Mocktown people that we've been informed of their bounties, but they just seem awfully silly. I don't know if we're gonna have anything of like a real conflict between the monkeys and the Straw Hats right now. I don't think so. That's my prediction, is that we're going to see Mr. Cricket. Let's get this information, and then whoever our next real antagonist is gonna show themselves.
Would it be a spoiler to say, as I end this episode, Eggy, that the resolution of the monkey storyline did make me cry?
Well, I would not have anticipated that whatsoever, so you definitely have interested me more than I think I was a minute ago.
It certainly ends better than it begins, but that is it for volume 24 of One Piece. We'll see you next week with more. Jaya, Eggy, any final words?
Well, just like the giant pie-loving man, never give up on your dreams, folks. If you believe, you can achieve.
Peace, people.